Nityanandam, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. So, I wanted to talk a little bit this week about gender, sex, and sexuality. It's been a hot topic the last week or so within my life, and it's been super fascinating because I'm actually in both a sociology class and a gender and global issues class right now at USC. So I've been thinking a lot about what all these things mean in our day-to-day lives and our interactions, how they affect us consciously and subconsciously, and most importantly, how they're actually extremely redundant and irrelevant because of spirituality and because of a Hindu frame of mind. So I wanted to explain this because I think it's so pertinent to all of you watching, to everybody, because these things affect us whether we know it or not. And so knowing it can help us reduce that unwanted effect on our lives. And what I mean by this is, right, we have these gender constructs that our entire society is based on. Pretty much everything in our lives is gendered, whether we remember or realize it or not. It's very funny, like everything is male and female. And we even see in other languages how most things have pronouns actually that make it either a male or female. It's this gender binary that is so limiting to our understanding of ourselves and the world. We only have two boxes, one male, one female, and then we only have masculinity and femininity in these both extreme sides of the spectrum. And everything we want to classify as one side or the other. But gender is a sliding scale, right? People fall all over it. Most people often aren't even born as a male or female, and it's so funny that we don't even talk about this. Yet the second a baby is born, we give it a gender. Even before a baby is born, sometimes the parents decide what gender it's going to be just because of the sex of the baby. By the way, the difference between sex and gender is very important to understand if you don't know it already. Sex is the physicality of the body. So sex is, I have female parts. That makes me a female in my sex, but not necessarily my gender. How I identify, how I interact with the world and portray myself to the world, how I represent myself, that's my gender. That could be female, that could be male, that could be trans, that could be anywhere I want to place it. That could be neither. That could be both. And it sounds funny, but it's true. Most people don't just identify with one thing, even if they haven't thought about it much. I would say I was raised with a brother, super close with him my whole life, so I've never felt like I'm 100% female because I felt a lot of masculinity brought out in myself because of interactions with myself, my brother, and the world around me. And so these things are really interesting to recognize and to think about, because when we allow the world and others to label us, to categorize us in these boxes, it is so limiting, not just to the labeler, but to the one labeled. And it's just the entire idea of it is that everything has to fit into these black and white categories, which we know is not the way that life works. And I feel like from a spiritual context, going back to that concept of non-duality is so important, right? Is that there is no such thing as only two ever. There's not even a real thing as good and bad in the world. Everything falls into one category, and that just is consciousness, that is being. And all these things are happening simultaneously for so many reasons. And so when we allow these things to hold us back, to limit, for instance, males are often categorized in the concept of being strong, of being logical and being emotionless. They're not free to express their emotions in the ways that they might want to. That is the one thing that limits the male gender in many ways. And then on the female side, we're often seen as weak, as overly emotional, as sensitive. And so that's a limiting thing to us, because in leadership positions, often we are not taken seriously. We aren't given the opportunities that males are given. So both parties are missing out on so much of what they want to experience inside. And I saw this one video in my class that was absolutely incredible, by this speaker called Alok Vaid-Menon from India, and he is identifies as trans and neither male or female, and is an amazing spoken word poet. And I loved what he explained as we need the power, we should be free to self-narrate our own bodies. And I think that is such a beautiful point. And so what I'm getting at here is, instead of looking at from this one framework, even from a feminist framework, I think that even that is still limiting. And what I started analyzing, and what I found, I actually had to write a paper about this, is that when we look at it from a spiritual context, we can break free of these molds in so many ways. For example, in Hinduism, in Vedic culture, in the ancient in the Vedas and the Agamas, the oldest text in the world, it is actually talked about that there's 11 different genders, which is so cool. And it's funny because we're taught, especially about Indian culture, often that it's has more problems with gender equality than America does. But the root of Indian society, of Hinduism in general, is that there's such progressive concepts on gender and sexuality. And so it's really even allowed me to have a new understanding about how I identify and how I've come to accept myself in whatever I want to label myself as. So in Hinduism, there's 11 different genders. There's no such thing as just male and just female. And I think that's so cool. And not only that, is that we have representations of the divine, not just in male form. And I think that is so important, because religion often sets up our whole context for life. For a lot of people, especially in the US, we're a very religious nation, whether we have official religion or not. Most of us are based in Western religion and Christianity. We look to only this male God as all-powerful, as the divine. So that can be very limiting, because we only see often this old white man in the sky is like who we're looking up to. But in Hinduism, the pantheon of thousands of deities and gods and goddesses, there's male, there's female, there's both male and female in one, always represented. The concept is the balance of Shiva Shakti, is that all of us have the capacity for both masculine and feminine energies within our systems. The only thing that makes me a female body is because I have 51% of Shakti energy versus 49% of Shiva energy, right? So it's not that it's like this drastic difference between me and maybe my brother who's a male body. It's just that it's this 1% that's just a little bit out of balance, right? And the coolest part is that the concept of enlightenment, right? Of reaching the highest state of consciousness, of reaching oneness in our lives, you're actually considered to be enlightened when you balance your Shiva Shakti, your male-female energies in your body 50-50. Which I think is so cool, is that it's actually in-depth talked about in Hinduism, that to transcend all of this, of the ego, of everything, of all this duality, you're actually supposed to work on balancing the male side of you and the female side of you. And to kind of recognize that both energies have both positives and negatives to them, that we want to blend and balance so that we can be experiencing the highest reality. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about gender and sexuality in further videos. I just think it's so fascinating that from the world's most ancient religion, we have one of the most, if not the most progressive context for gender and sexuality. And at the end of the day, everything we're told in society, within the matrix, is extremely redundant and irrelevant, because we don't fall in male and female. We fall into this massive spectrum, and we are not just here to be a male or female body. We're here to find our divinity and to balance all of these aspects within ourselves in the highest and best way possible. So thank you so much for watching. Ask me any questions you want in the comments below, and I'll get back to you guys next week. Nityanandam.